I spent 37 years living in frustrating and painful depression where every day was a struggle of low energy, bad moods, self-doubt, and just slogging through my day. Then I changed two things and completely erased my depression. And if you just thought, BS, I get it, but I'm totally serious. I tried everything to get rid of my depression. And out of all the stuff I tried, there were two simple steps that completely changed my life. And then I use these things to help my depressed patients with tremendous success. So in this video, I'll show you the first step I took that most of us have backwards, and that's to starve your depression and stop feeding it. Then I'll show you the weird type of care that erased the cause of my depression, making me depression-free for the last 9 years. So let's start by starving your depression while feeding the happy depression-free you. It's in there. Even if you don't know it, I know it is. So let's feed it and make it stronger. I figured this out when I got strep throat. Again, for what felt like the 50th time, but this time it was really painful. My throat was crazy raw and it hurt incredibly to swallow. And it even hurt to breathe where the air flowing over my tonsils was just, ugh. Well, I hadn't eaten and I was pretty hungry. So I opened a can of chicken noodle soup because that helps when you're sick, right? Well, I warmed the soup up and then I put a spoonful of it in my mouth and it tasted weird. It was flat and it also felt dead. So I put some salt on it and it still had no taste and I actually couldn't get myself to swallow it. And I had never had food taste and feel like this, and I didn't have anything else in my kitchen that looked good. So I went to the local co-op health food store that had a soup bar and I got a cup of their chicken noodle soup. And I sat down with that. And when I put that first spoonful in my mouth, my whole body went happy. That soup tasted good and it felt amazing. So I gobbled that soup down, eating the noodles and the chicken and the celery and the carrots, and I slurped down all the broth. And the whole time I was marveling at how good the soup tasted and felt, while my canned soup tasted flat and it felt dead. What was the difference? Well, I wanted more soup, so I got back in the car, back to the store, and I went straight to the kitchen and I asked someone there, why does this soup taste so amazing? Well, she smiled and she told me that they make it from scratch. They make their own broth, they use fresh vegetables, organic chicken and fresh herbs. And so I told her, I'm pretty sick right now. And I warmed up a can of chicken noodle soup at home and it tasted nothing like this. It had no flavor and it felt dead, whereas your soup tastes amazing and I swear it feels alive. And she smiled at me again and proceeded to educate me that you have no idea the quality of the ingredients in that canned soup. How good was the chicken? Were the vegetables fresh? What was the quality of the water they used? And how do you think it's possible for a can of soup to sit on your shelf for a year while this fresh soup's going to go bad in a few days? And I got me thinking about what she told me as I got a big container of that soup to take home. And when I got home, I decided to try an experiment. So I opened up my fridge and I dug a fork into the no-bake cheesecake that I had in there. And I put that in my mouth and it tasted flat and felt dead. Then I decided to microwave a ready-made meal. And as it was cooking, I grabbed last night's leftovers, which was a box meal with meat added in, and it also tasted flat and felt blah. And the microwave dinged and I tasted that food and it felt, as you can guess, flat and dead. And so then I tasted that soup from the co-op again and it tasted and felt amazing. And as I did this, I noticed another aspect of this is that I felt happier when I tasted that co-op soup. So I went back and tasted the cheesecake, the microwave meal, the boxed meal leftovers. But this time I watched how it felt when I ate them. And how I felt when I tasted the flat and blah food was that I felt flat. I felt lower. Then I ate the co-op soup again and I felt happier. That soup was the only one that lifted my mood, that made me feel good emotionally. And that was my aha moment. I'd been eating food every day that felt flat and blah. And so I was feeding my body this kind of food that made me feel down. And I was already depressed. So why would I want to eat in a way that made me feel more depressed? And I wondered, what if I ate more food that made me feel positive and happy? What if I fed the happy part of me? Would that help me get out of my depression? So at that moment, I made a decision to change the way that I eat. And this is what helped me out of my depression. And my rules, two simple ones: Eat more whole foods, cut down or eliminate the processed foods. Simple, right? Easy? Not always. So let's break it down just a little bit. Eating whole foods. This is like the co-op chicken noodle soup. Whole food is a food that is intact like it grew in nature. So lettuce that looks like lettuce, asparagus that looks like asparagus, an apple that you get it looks like an apple. Meat that is meat, like a steak or chicken leg that has not been turned into something else. And soup that is made with whole ingredients. Whole foods are a complete food with the vitamins, the minerals, the fibers, the activated water, all the nutrients that our body needs and our mind needs to be at their best. And whole food is the most nutrient-dense food you will ever eat. And studies show that depression increases when you lack nutrients like B vitamins, vitamin C, magnesium, and inositol. And that's because these nutrients run processes in your body that make feel-good hormones. So eating whole foods is giving your body the fuel it needs to make feel-good hormones, which makes you feel better about yourself and less prone to depression. Starve the depression and feed the happy, healthy part of you. Now, when I was depressed, I ate mostly processed foods that came in boxes and cans, and food did not have the nutrients I needed to make feel-good hormones. So I was starving myself of the nutrients I needed to lower my depression. So out went the boxed meals, the hamburger helper, the mac and cheese, the canned soup, the microwavable meals, and in came food that fed my body and mind. And they were as close to nature as possible. And my rule became, how do I feel when I eat this processed food versus this whole food? So I really tuned in and listened to my body every time I ate processed food and I felt blah or down. And then I listened to my body every time I ate the whole food and I felt uplifted and I actually felt happy. I felt empowered that I was feeding the happy part of me and starving my depression. And if this sounds impossible to you, just start. Take one meal and shift that, and the whole time pay attention to how you feel. How do you feel when you eat the processed food? And how do you feel when you eat the whole food? See, when you get one meal shifted over, what you'll do then is do your next meal and keep going. And also, start shopping at stores that sell whole food. Shop at the health food stores. And if you have never set foot in a health food store, go in and ask someone to show you around. Tell them you want to eat better and don't feel stupid about doing it, because here's what's going to happen for you. They're going to be excited to show you around. I've seen it happen over and over again because they are excited to be sharing healthy living and healthy eating with you. And so that right there will help lift your mood. So the second step, which is even more powerful than food to get you out of depression. Do you know why you are depressed? I ask all of my patients who are depressed this question, and 95% of the time the answer I get is, I don't know. This is a massive problem, because if you don't know why you're depressed, then you don't know what to do to get out of it. And that's where I was for 37 years. I had no freaking clue why I was depressed. I knew I felt horrible and I desperately wanted to get out of it. And so I did therapy, I did hypnotherapy, I did counseling, I self-medicated with drugs and food. I kept trying things, but never got anywhere. And I watched the same pattern in my patients, struggling with depression and not knowing where to turn or what to do to get out of it. And I want you to know something. You're carrying a backpack right now, and you've been carrying it every single day of your life. And in this backpack is every hurt, every trauma, every painful moment from your past. Betrayal from a friend, into your pack. The loss of someone you love, into the pack. The harsh words that hurt, into the pack. Every day, year after year, the pain from life fills this pack and weighs you down. Now, in myself and in every single person I've helped out of their depression, their backpack is full of emotional baggage. I mean, I was carrying a literal mountain of it in my backpack, and it made me angry. It made me frustrated, disappointed, and of course, depressed. And that was until I tried a new type of care that released my emotional baggage. Let me give you the groundwork for you. Okay, there are several parts of our brain. And the part we know the most about is the part that's watching us right now. The part that reads books, listens to music, has conversations, the part that thinks and solves problems. And this part of your brain is great at thinking and problem solving, but it knows nothing about your emotional baggage and how it makes you depressed. So we need to tap into a different part of your brain. We need to tap into the part that stores all of your emotional baggage. And to connect to that part of the brain, I luckily found an energy healer. And I went in and she took one look at me and she said I was a complete mess. I was like, well, yeah, she's right. So I started care with her. And, I felt exhausted after each visit. And I had to take a nap after I saw her. So I knew something was happening. But at first, I didn't think she was helping me. But after 8 weekly sessions over, 2 months of care, I suddenly realized and noticed that I wasn't feeling as down as I usually did. And so I thought back over how I felt when I started energy healing to how I felt 2 months later. And I saw that my depression was not as intense and that I was feeling more positive. Shocker. What I felt is that as I released emotional baggage, my depression began to lift. My anger softened and I was less irritable. I was able to relax and let go of things instead of getting pissed off all the time. And it was like as I released my emotional baggage, the depressed part of me got quieter. And the happy part of me got louder and louder, making me feel better, the thing that I was just dying to have. Then, when I learned how to help my patients release their baggage, I watched them get the same results that I did. Their depression lifted, anxiety went down, they got calmer, and they are overall happier. I want that for you too. So, what I want you to do is watch this video next, and I'll guide you through an energy healing session that helps release your emotional baggage.